Great job, parents. We are in session 8 of Family Foundations for Optimal Sexual Development, and we will be working with the topic of a path to healthy lifelong marriage. And in this session, I am going to bring other parts of the sessions that we've brought to this point, because at this point, we want to help our kids to a destination of marriage if they choose to get married. It is perfectly fine and acceptable for someone to remain single, but we would add what's optimal sexual health would be single without sexual activity. The place for sexual activity is within lifelong loving marriage. So let's move on this path and journey toward marriage. The overview: why a path is needed, why marriage is a wonderful destination, the skills and tools that you and we parents need to help our kids navigate the path, and lastly, application for parenting, the teach and modeling parent. So there's your path to healthy lifelong marriage, and you'll notice the box on the far right. Well, let's blow that up, because that is our fireplace of lifelong, loving, healthy marriage, and we said that's the best place for sex to happen and to keep all sexual activity within the fireplace of lifelong, loving marriage. So that's the goal. That's where we're headed. But as we went through a lot of sessions that had sexual risks and a whole lot of voices. Well, why is the path even needed? Because of those very voices and risks. There are counterfeits out there, lies about sex, temptations, voices that are speaking during this puberty time and before puberty. There's friend and relational challenges. Porn is looking for the kids. During puberty, there's bodily changes, brain changes, emotional changes. It can be a body image concern time. There's peer pressure, identity confusion, and sexual desire. And at puberty and after puberty, a child can have every single one of those on your screen, bombarding them like a major hurricane all at one time. So I say all of that not to concern you parents, but to make you aware and to share just how important you are and how important you are as a guide to your children. You have already gone through this path and made it through, and even if you've made mistakes, even your mistakes serve as an advantage for you because you don't want your child to make that same mistake. So you have a heightened awareness of how protecting your child is important and guiding them on this journey. I'm going to choose porn as one of the voices that was speaking. That was a very hard session that I led in session 5 where I talked about porn. I just want to highlight once again how important it is for the kids to stay on the path and how these voices are trying to get them off the path. So 6 trends for viewers of porn. Now notice these go exact opposite of lifelong, loving, healthy marriage. With increased porn, the first trend is an increased marital distress, separation, and divorce. That is not the path we want our kids to go on. Second trend, decreased in marital intimacy and sexual satisfaction. Same. Infidelity, number 3. 4, increased appetite for graphic porn. 5, devaluation of monogamy, marriage, and child rearing. And 6, more people struggling with addiction and compulsive sexual behavior. So this I'm highlighting as one of the voices, one of the shiny things that's trying to guide the kids off the path, a signpost saying, hey, come over here, come and do this. Hey, everybody's doing this. Hey, this is really good. or even something as simple as no mention of sex and marriage in the same context. Sex, 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 sex is all kids hear with social media, but completely divorced from marriage. So it's super important based on this that marriage is the destination. But why? Why marriage? What's the research? What's the evidence that marriage is the best context for sex? Well, there was a study done, 30 conclusions why marriage matters. This study started in 1982, but it was updated in the 2000s, and they came out with version 3 of Why Marriage Matters in 2011. I'm not going to read all 30, but I've highlighted one on each of the next maybe 7 slides. So in relation to family, marriage increases the likelihood that fathers and mothers have good relationships with their children. That's what the research says. Also dealing with family. Number 5, growing up outside an intact marriage increases the likelihood that children will themselves divorce or become unwed parents. Along the research related to marriage and economy or finances, number 10 says married couples seem to build more wealth on average than singles or cohabiting couples. Also related to money. 13, married men earn more money than do single men with similar education and job histories. Interesting. Relating to physical health and longevity of life, 16, children who live with their own 2 married parents enjoy better physical health on average than do children in other family forms. Related to health, number 21, marriage seems to be associated with better health among minorities and the poor. So marriage is excellent no matter what the socioeconomic status, no matter what the ethnicity. Next, relating to mental health and emotional well-being, 23, cohabitation is associated with higher levels of psychological problems among children. And the last one, relating to crime and domestic violence, number 28, married women appear to have a lower risk of experiencing domestic violence than do cohabiting or dating women. So, marriage really does matter. And so, number 8 on the screen is the destination. And it's the goal to keep all sexual activity here within lifelong, loving, healthy marriage, which means abstinence up to that point, and then once in the marriage, abstinence outside of the marriage, keeping all sexual activity within that marriage. So you see, number 8 is the destination. Well, what is steps 1 through 7? There we go. So what you see here is a sequence. It's kind of a natural progression of how things might develop relationally. So it starts with dad and mom, the relational bond between dad and mom. That's number 1. 2, developing friendships. Usually it's within the same sex before puberty, and then once puberty happens, number 3, then all of a sudden opposite sex relationships and friendships form. And then number 5 is an intentional relationship with one person of the opposite sex. And then number 6, building unions within that relationship. And hold that thought. I'm going to come back to it. Once that couple is deciding that they have the commitment to go all the way till death do them part, then they would consider engagement, number 7, and then the wedding, leading to lifelong loving marriage. And I'll note that number 8 is not the finish line. It's like a whole new starting line. So where your kids are at is the starting line that they are on right now. And the goal is to get them to the new starting line, which is lifelong loving marriage. So I wanted to highlight number 6, building unions. The bricks of the fireplace of lifelong loving marriage, those are the unions, the relational union, the emotional union, spiritual union, mental union, familial union. The stronger those unions are even before marriage, the stronger the relationship will be once they get into the marriage, and also the safer sex will be, potentially better sex will be, because it's protected, it's valued. The relationship is built on unity and union and love and commitment. So the more of these that are in place, the better it will be for the couple. And if there's any growth areas, those are the ones that should be focused on. So moving on, you'll notice I put 2 arrows there. There's a relationship bond with dad and mom. That is the primary relationship that a child has. The parents are the most important relationship in their life until marriage. Then there's a new primary relationship, and that is with your spouse. And so once again, I highlighted the building the unions, because as our kids get older, they do start to establish their own individuality, their own self, and they're branching out on their own until they form a new primary relationship with their spouse, and then relationship with parents becomes secondary at that point. Now, as you look at this progression or sequence, it is possible for somebody to miss a step. And I wanted to bring up this analogy. Have you ever seen a 13-year-old crawling on the floor? Well, I have heard a physical therapist talk about her insisting that a 13-year-old crawl on the floor, and it's because that child went from sitting up to standing up and walking. That child, when they were 10 months old, skipped the step of crawling, and so some brain development didn't happen, and it affected this child's quality of life. So the physical therapist had the child crawl on the ground. Think about these steps or the sequence in the same fashion. If there was a weak spot or a missing spot, then those should be focused on. So say there was not a relationship bond with dad or mom, at the very bottom I highlighted, it's important for a child, no matter what the age, to have a father figure and a mother figure with a healthy relationship. And you'll notice on the right side, it is super important that children and teens and 20-somethings observe healthy, loving, lifelong marriages. The more they see, the better. Because typically we only know what we've seen, what we've observed, what we've experienced. And so it was eye-opening for me to observe my future wife's parents, because they had a stronger marriage than my parents. And I think my parents would agree with that. But I'm super thankful that my parents stuck it out. But it was super helpful for me to observe other relationships, marriage relationships, so that I had a model of what my marriage relationship could become. Now, parents, you are guiding your child through this path, through the sequence. And I want to highlight 4 areas of discernment for you so that you can highlight these with your children. And you remember from session 5, I taught you the Hawaiian word maka, eyes, ala, awake. We want our kids to be eyes awake, eyes discerning, filtering everything that is coming through their heart, their mind, their ears, their eyes, so that they can judge and discern that which is truly good for them. So the first area for you to teach your kids discernment is discerning the big seven. You remember what those were? These are the ones that the voices that are speaking loudly to your kids. TV, Hollywood, music, advertising, social media, Planned Parenthood, porn, school system, etc. We need our kids to be judging everything that they are taking in. Kind of like when you go to the airport and you go through TSA and they take a bag and they run it through the machine, they go zzz, 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 zzz. They're checking every part of it to see if there's anything that's dangerous in that bag. We need to teach our kids to do the same thing with their thoughts, their emotions, what they're taking in from the big seven. The second area for discernment is a little bit more fun, because in the progression after puberty, kids start developing relationships with the opposite sex. And before they form any relationship, now notice I am very intentional. I put number 5, forming a relationship. Notice I didn't say dating. And that is intentional on my part, because I've had teenagers tell me that when youth are dating, they are having sex. And so I am emphasizing, number 5, that young people would develop a relationship with the opposite sex without sexual activity, any sexual activity. So before that even happens, we want to help our kids discern what qualities our future spouse should have. And now notice, implicit in that is that we're not just forming relationships to form relationships. We would be forming relationships, moving on that path intentionally toward lifelong loving marriage. So if somebody is not marriage quality or caliber, there's no sense forming a relationship with that person. So what you can do as a parent is talk story with your child. Hey, child, what are the really important qualities, characteristics that you would want in a future spouse? And have the child brainstorm 20 things, 30 things, maybe even 40 things. And then once they look at that list, have them think through what are the non-negotiable ones. For example, the child may have put down, well, must be a certain ethnicity, or must be taller than me, or a certain weight, or fitness. Well, we would then talk to our child, is that a non-negotiable? Must your future spouse be taller than you? How important is that in your relationship? And so have your child think through. And so then what's going to happen is you're going to whittle down a list that I've listed 10 things here that are kind of non-negotiables to me, that the future spouse will be kind, compassionate, helpful, faithful, communicative, forgiving, that they love family, love God, love me, and love children. And maybe there's 10 other qualities, must-have qualities. At that point, you as a parent can look at that list with your child and have your child rate that relational person with those qualities on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being really high. So with those must-have qualities, what number would that person be? Would it be an 8, a 9, a 9.5? A lot of times when I do this with youth in a classroom, they'll say that's a 9.5 person. Actually, some of them will say that's a 10, but I'll say, is there anybody that's perfect? So then they bring it back to a 9.5. And so then you can say that's an excellent list that you are looking for a relationship leading to lifelong marriage. Then you ask the big question, which is, what kind of person, with what kind of qualities would a 9.5 person be looking for? And the kid's eyes grow really big because a 9.5 person is going to be looking for a 9.5 spouse. So that leads to the third area of discernment, that we help our child become a 9.5, which means evaluation. Looking at ourselves openly and honestly, looking in the mirror and not deceiving ourselves. What are the growth areas? What can I work on? How can I be more faithful, loyal, work hard, let my words be true and stick to those things? So we want to encourage our child to become the 9.5. The fourth area is a biggie: discerning between love, infatuation, and lust. So I created a chart, and I'm just going to walk through each of these, top left all the way down, and then the next column. Let's start with lust. And there's some continuity across too. So take your time to study this, and I'm sure you can make this even better than what I've got here. And certainly add your own experience and your own wisdom to this. But this is a key one, especially because, let's say, media and Hollywood distort lust and infatuation greatly. Somebody in porn, when they say, "I love you," we need to help our kids discern, hey, that's really, "I lust you." And how about all the romantic movies that are out there in Hollywood? They say, "I love you," but it really should be said, "I infatuate you." Those are not long-term relationships, and they're going to bed with each other within 2 weeks and sometimes the very first night. So it's super important to discern between lust, infatuation, and love. So lust, starting at the top left, is very selfish. It really is all about me. And I say it's not confusing if a person understands what love is, because love is about the other person and caring for the other person. Lust only cares about self. So in that sense, lust is not confusing at all. But you remember in session 5 when we talked about porn, that kids are growing up thinking that porn sex is real sex, and they're thinking it's real love. And so that's why I put parentheses around lust, saying it's not confusing. For them, it could be if they've never seen or experienced love. So lust is all about self. The other person is only a body. They're objectified for my personal gratification. They can't see the person. They only see a body. They don't think about feelings. They don't think about hurting the person. They only see that that person is a temporary object for my gratification, and that means that that other person runs a high risk of being victimized. Infatuation is also selfish, but a little bit different. It still is all about me, but by thinking about the other person. Every time I'm around this person, I feel so great. You got the warm fuzzies going, and that person's amazing, and I feel so good about it, and oh, it so feels like love. And so it's very confusing, because every time I'm around that person, it feels great, and it feels like the most amazing thing. The problem is, with infatuation, the person is not seeing the real person. It's seeing an idealized, unrealistic person. So in that sense, it's not even being fair to that person who's being infatuated over. So the person with infatuation can't even see the true person, and infatuation is temporary. It can last up to 18 months for some girls, but at some point, there is going to be an opening of the eyes and an awareness that, oh my goodness, I was wrong about who that person is. So there is a high risk of victimization here, because the world's message is, hey, if we love each other, we should be having sex. But what I'm pointing out here is, hey, we infatuate each other. That is exactly not the time to be having sex, nor is having lust the time to be having sex with somebody. So now let's shift over to love. Love is not about self. It's being selfless. It's about doing the best for the other person. And that takes time, work, self-sacrifice. It sees the real imperfect person. And yet, we refuse to give up on that other person. So there's lots of grace mixed into this. With love, we see the person as a work in progress, and we refuse to give up on them. It's a long-term commitment, and what comes from that is a fostering of growth, and in marriage, it makes the two better. It's iron sharpening iron. We grow up when we have to communicate, when we have to focus on the we instead of the me. And so love is what is the foundation for marriage, family, community, and ultimately a strong nation. So that's 4 areas of discernment that you as a parent can help your child learn to discern. So now, communication, 4 more emphases that you can help your child work through. The first one is just basic communication and understanding. We foster that when our kids are young. And I especially think it's very important that kids work on communication and understanding through all their relationships, and especially when after puberty, when they are starting to develop opposite sex friendships. Very important because males and females are different. The more kids are around the opposite sex and understand, I think the better relationship will be in marriage. Next communication emphasis is verbal refusal skills. This is the exact opposite of what kids are getting in the public schools through CSE, and Phil is going to talk about this next session. In CSE, the focus is on consent, which is helping 2 people come to an agreement that we should be having sex. Whereas the whole point here is to wait for the best and the optimal time to have sex, which is lifelong loving marriage. So we want to teach our kids refusal skills, how to move away from sex. And so there's 2 areas for that. The first is debunking the big 7. It is helpful for us as parents to walk along with our child, to watch a Hollywood movie together and help them process, help them debunk the messaging that they're hearing. So kids have a rebuttal to messages that the world is saying. Keep in mind, there's a lot of great information out there, pages and pages and pages that will debunk things. But I think it's the simple responses. If one kid is approached with sex, and your child responds with, "What? Are you crazy? I care about my body." What an amazing response. That's going to cause that other kid to think twice and wake up. Do I care about my body? What a simple response that could provoke not only the person who was tempting, but who else heard that response. So debunking the big 7, refuting the messaging, is good for your own child, but then your child becomes an agent of transforming culture and can influence their peers, their friends, even their enemies, God willing. And then hopefully all of culture will rise toward the path of keeping sex within lifelong loving marriage. Now, some situations can be very tempting for kids. And we've heard a number of children say, "I was taught to wait for marriage to have sex," but in the heat of the moment, they did not know how to say no. They didn't know what to do. And so that's why we want to emphasize the SAFE plan. S stands for state your boundaries, A for avoid danger, F for firmly say no, and E for exit. So we want our kids to state their boundaries, and you as a parent can help your child state their boundaries on drugs, alcohol, cyberbullying, porn, hatred, and then how about sexuality? Well, this is a wonderful, very clear and decisive boundary that I encourage all parents to teach their kids regarding sexual abstinence. It is not participating in any sexual activity outside of marriage. That is a hard boundary. Any sexual activity. So out is the question of, well, how far is too far? Forget it. Keep all sexual activity in marriage so that we bond just with that one person, that we don't have any baggage from the past, that we don't have anybody to compare our marriage relationship with. We can have a whole lifetime of learning mutually satisfying sexual experience within the safety of marriage. It's a beautiful thing. But I do need to say, our kids may have messed up. And all of this guidance on the path toward lifelong marriage still applies even if our child has already had a sexual experience. Why is that? Because today is a new day. It's a fresh start. We cannot go back and change the past, but we can work with our kids today to give them the better future. And so with our messaging, it's always a message of hope. But this is a beautiful boundary and a beautiful definition. And I ask you, is this boundary more about no, or is it more about yes? And I could make the statement that it's both, but we're saying no to the counterfeits now so that we're saying yes to the better in lifelong loving marriage. So this definition is about yes. So I view stating our boundaries as being proactive, staying out of a dangerous situation would be avoiding danger. So stating boundaries and avoiding danger is very proactive. The two biggies with avoiding danger: don't be alone with someone else. And secondly, drugs and alcohol. Just not have those in there. That greatly reduces the chance that there would be any sexual activity. So those first two are being proactive, and yet, just like porn came to me, I wasn't looking for porn when I was 7. It came to me in the same way a sexual situation can come to our child. And so we need to prepare our children beforehand to firmly say no with their mouth, with their tone, with their body. No! And we need to practice with our kids. And if that other person refuses to listen, then we go with E, which is exit. So that's the SAFE plan. Those are 4 areas of communication. And now the last 2, as we're getting closer and closer to marriage, we want to be building those unions so that, man, we're hitting the ground running. So 2 crucial times for equipping would be premarital counseling. This would be the time to have multiple sessions with trained and experienced pastors or counselors who themselves live the message, who live a lifelong loving marriage. And this would be the time for the couple to identify what are their growth areas so that they individually, they get healed as much as possible, that they work on the we, that they work on the unions, that they prepare themselves financially. They talk about expectations for sex. They talk about where they're going to live, their vocation. There's all sorts of areas that they can talk about that will help move them together in a oneness, in a unity and a union. So that's premarital counseling. And I'm going to say this is way more important than all the work that goes into the wedding itself. I've seen couples spend so much time on the wedding as if that's the finish line, that they've gotten themselves into debt and they've disagreed about what the wedding is going to be, and they've come into the marriage relationship in a deficit situation, in conflict and in debt, and then they're off to a bad start with their wedding. The last one, marital coaching. It's not enough to get them to the starting line. Kids need great marriage examples who can coach them in the first year, the second year, the third year, the fourth year, when kids come. And that would be great. And so then those that are being coached ideally will become mentors and coaches to others. So equipping our children for marriage at those two crucial times is huge. So that's our path to healthy, lifelong marriage. You parents are like the shepherd who have been down that path before, and you're experienced, and you can come back from your child's future to meet them in the present, wherever they're at, whatever sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Meet them there, give them the skills, the tools, the provision, feed them the right thoughts, give them discernment, communication. They got all these tools and skills in their tool belt, and they will be able to fend off everything that will want to steer them off the path, and instead they'll be intentional about staying on the path to receive the best sex within lifelong loving marriage. So, your homework assignment is go back, listen to this whole thing, and start giving your kids the skills one by one, starting with the one that you think is the most important. Thanks for listening, and let this be a fun journey for you as you coach your kids. Aloha.